So I have 2 hours before my next flight, and I decided to make a little painting of this view. This is my watercolor kit. Just need some water.
Alright, so to start, I find my horizon line, and then I start with the most distant objects like the mountains. I don't try to do anything perfect here. I just go with what's most important or what most attracted me to the scene, which were the blue mountains, and just the sense of light. So it was so bright out. Here I start adding an airplane that just was passing by, because I thought that that could give something to the scene. And I mean, it's the airport, so I guess it's kind of fitting. Now I'm moving on to painting the biggest and darkest shape, which will be the foreground of the painting. It's just a silhouette of a couple of chairs and also my girlfriend sitting there, who kindly was holding the phone for the duration of this sketch and the painting, which will come up later. There she is, or the impression of her sitting, or any person really sitting in front of this view. I am just about done doing the sketch, and now we're gonna be moving on to the painting. Alright, so we're moving on and starting to put some color into the scene. I usually start with the sky. I usually start with the furthest thing back, and since it's watercolor, you usually work from light to dark, so it just makes sense to start with the lightest part of the painting being the sky in this scene. I mean, it's not always that you start with the sky, especially when it's like, for example, sunsets. It's not always the lightest thing depending on which direction you're looking towards. However, in this scene is appropriate to start with the sky. I'm about to move into making the mountains and then the trees or the tree lines. But I kind of ran into a problem here, which was that yellow that I'm using did not make the kind of greens that I wanted. And these are certain challenges that we sometimes face with having a limited palette. In this case, I would blame it on the type of yellow. It doesn't give me that much of a range. But I mean, it's worked out. I think that this palette that I have, or the type of colors that I have, are best suited for probably different scenes or different atmospheric scenes, for example, sunsets or close to sunset or golden hours. Nothing that requires very green landscape. Now that I'm almost done with the mountains, I'll probably put in the trees, and you can see that it just looks too yellow. The problem with putting too much yellow on the scene when it's supposed to be the background is that it brings things forward more than they should. But at the end, it really doesn't matter. Here, what I wanted to do was just try to practice my painting. I mean, I'm in an airport. My girlfriend is holding up the phone, and I'm feeling a bit of pressure because of that, because she's being kind enough to be my tripod. So I did move pretty fast, and I just didn't let this bother me too much. Also, you might not notice this, but this sketchbook that I'm painting in is not made for watercolor. So that also brings a bit of a challenge when painting in this medium on it. But so far, I think for these kinds of sketches that are nothing close to a finished painting or a masterpiece, I mean, no sketch like this should be anything of that kind. I mean, you're out in the field just trying to make the best out of what you're seeing and trying to get the impression of that place. Since the colors are not turning out as I want to, I'm still gonna try to see if I can do a better green for that flat grass in the immediate foreground where it's getting close to where the plane tracks are. Something that I often do when I'm painting plein air, even though this is not really outside, is that I improvise. And I mean, watercolor is not the best medium for improvisation because you want to plan what you want to do before you actually do it. So that sometimes results in a failed painting, but sometimes it's also fun just to figure out what works even with such an unforgiving medium as watercolor. But one thing that I didn't dare to do on this one was not go around the plane that just kind of passed through while I was sketching. I feel like this will really add something to the scene, so I'm careful to preserve the whites. I want that to be the brightest part of the scene. Also, I'm sorry if I sound sickly. That's because I am in bed while I'm voicing over this, as you can probably hear. I mean, you can't hear that I'm in bed, but you can hear that I'm sick. Now I'm moving on to the immediate foreground, trying to make some sort of like shadow gray color. I really like the scene type that I picked because the most important part was really the lightest part, which is also already in, which is the sky, the mountains, the trees, the train, the plane track, and the plane. And the rest of the painting is just gonna be a big shadow shape, which basically frames the whole, the most important part of the scene for me. I am going over the shadow shape, or I mean the silhouette of my girlfriend or a person sitting in front of that, just so I don't lose that reference. And I'm gonna add a very small shadow under a plane, and I was frantically looking outside to see if there was a plane so I could copy the reference of how the shadow is looking. And luckily one just went by as I was going to start painting that, so lucky me. I also add some of the shadows on the thing where you walk into the plane, which I don't remember what's the name of it. I don't think I know what the name of it is. I also add a little bit of blue into the reflection of the table that's beside the two chairs. I feel like that's pretty important. And now I'm gonna add some detail to the plane, which here I'm just improvising because I didn't have a picture of the plane and I didn't have the plane in front of me to paint from. So yeah, this is a bit scary because I was like, well, this could either be a really good thing or it could be really bad. So I go conservative and only do the tail and the wings with the red. I also forgot when I was sketching the plane, the turbine, so somehow this plane is able to fly since it doesn't have any turbines. As you can see, I'm being very careful of adding the red just in two places that follow kind of the perspective. And now I'm being very, very careful of adding some of the windows. Of course, you can't see that because they're very small and very light in value. They're there. I will show you a picture of it close up in the next or at the end of the video. Now I'm adding a bit of shadow under the plane just so it has that 3D feel. And I'm looking at it and wondering if I need anything more, and I think I need a little bit more on the window where the pilot is. I'm never afraid of using my finger to scrub out something that I feel I might have used a little bit too much paint on, like you just saw me do there. And now I'm explaining something to my girlfriend that I can't really remember what it was, but I think I'm just telling her that, yeah, now I'm gonna move on and do the big shadow shape and kind of be done with it because it's getting closer to our boarding time. And also I'm still feeling a bit bad that she's just holding the phone over me and helping me record this. I'm very grateful for such a companion in my watercolor journey and of course traveling. So see, now I'm gonna be adding the dark shape, and I just want to add that watercolor is just such a beautiful medium to take on the go. I mean, the setup is so small, so easy to clean, so easy to just work with, really. If I was using oils or acrylic or anything else, maybe gouache would be fine. It would just be a bigger mess, and this wouldn't have been possible. Now I'm gonna be adding the frames or the poles that were of the window panes. I can see that the mixture I used is not opaque enough. And here I'm about to do a mistake that I kind of regret. I could have left this window pane like that, but I added another one that is kind of going over the trees, and that did kind of ruin the painting for me. But at the same time, I mean, that's how we learn. We make mistakes. I mean, I was a bit under pressure as well. My own pressure, really. My girlfriend was pretty calm and wasn't like complaining or anything, even if our plane was gonna leave in a few minutes, or we were gonna start boarding in a few minutes. So I see my mistake and I start adding much thicker paint, and you can see that as soon as I put it, like, you can feel how bright it was looking out that window. I'm not really bothered by a lot of details. I just want to make sure that it looks like that's a chair and there's a table, and I also want to show that there's some pattern on the floor. But other than that, this is a very simple painting that I did. I'm surprised it went this fast because I'm not so familiar with this subject, and that's something that you can always expect, that if you don't know the subject very well, the painting might take you a little bit longer than it should, but that's okay. That just means that you're learning something new, and that's good. That's what we want when we're out and painting. Just learning the subject, learning the medium as well. Now you can see that I'm adding that shadow under the table, and we're coming close to an end to this painting. What I wanted to do was also add a little bit of color to the person who's sitting there, because then that would just not be anything. It would just look like a dead object or anything. But first I add some of the patterns that you can see in the top. Not very well. I mean, it's not what I was attracted to in the scene anyway, so it doesn't need to be perfect. Not even the whole painting needs to be perfect. It's just about trying, and you learn so much from painting outdoors or outside your studio, from life, that it really can't be taught or learned in a studio. Of course, you can do still life paintings and that's still valuable. But when you're talking about these kinds of scenes that are much more spontaneous or unusual in a way, this is where the magic happens. I mean, you are basically ingraining a moment in history for yourself and also in your painting journey, and that's very special. I hope that you like this video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more if you want to see more of this type of video. Here's the finished painting. See you next time.